it's Julia and welcome back to my channel. Today we are renovating another apartment and it's another one from the apartment building that I've recently shown you on the channel. And today we are furnishing the small basement apartment, so the one on the left. And as you've already seen on the thumbnail and the short intro, it's a very rundown and grungy apartment, so not very well maintained. It's kind of dirty, kind of in not a very good condition, so not the best place to live, but I had so much fun furnishing this. And again, as already for the last apartment, I came up with a rather specific backstory for the person living there. And again, I also created the character in CAS, so if you want to, you can download the sim from the gallery, and if you want to, you can play with him in this apartment. The apartment is not available on the gallery right now because I only want to share the apartment building as soon as all the apartments are furnished. And there are still 4 more to do, so it's still going to take me some time, but they are all going to be up on the gallery, so you could technically play with them. Now, as for the backstory of the sim living in this apartment. So he's a young adult, although I thought he's probably not super young anymore, so he's probably in his 30s, like his early mid-30s or something, which is still young, of course, but he's not a super young adult anymore. And I thought that ever since he was a teen, he basically was involved in some crook jobs going on. So he probably doesn't come from a very good background. He probably came from kind of a broken family. He didn't have a very good education, and he just grew up in very difficult circumstances. And in his case, this brought him in contact with, let's say, shady people involved in criminal stuff. And yeah, because he didn't really have anywhere else to go to, and because he couldn't really rely on his family, he kind of stuck to those people. And these people kind of became his family, so to say. So yeah, from his teen years on, he was kind of involved in crook jobs and criminal activities, and it was more or less the only thing he knew. So he basically is a criminal, but he never was involved in anything really terrible. He's not a bad person per se. He really just grew up in this environment, and there weren't many alternatives for him, or he didn't see any alternatives because he was just in the grip of these people. Yeah, so this was what characterized his upbringing. So he was always involved in things like thefts and burglaries and things like that. Nothing that would like physically harm people. This is not something he would want to do, but he's always kind of been a thief. But now at some point, he was taking part in a job and the job went wrong. I don't know if the job like per se failed, because I also gave him the clumsy trade. So maybe he did something wrong and he got caught. I don't know if the others got caught, but he got caught. And because he already had a criminal record, he had to go to prison. And this is basically where the whole story starts. So some years later, he got out of prison again, and he didn't really know where to go to because he doesn't have his former apartment anymore. I thought he probably had to kind of give it up when he had to go to prison. So yeah, he didn't really know where to go, and probably for some nights he slept at a friend's place or something, but he cannot stay there forever, and so he had to find his own apartment. And what he found was this place here. And yeah, this is like the worst place possible, but it was the only thing that he could barely afford and the only one that was available at the moment, so he kind of had to go for this apartment. And it's kind of surprising that it was rented out in the first place, because as you can tell, the place is kind of disgusting. So it has all these cracks and stains on the walls, everything is dirty, the walls are just like the bare brick walls and then just this thin layer of plaster over it. It's not a very nice place, definitely not an ideal place to stay. And yeah, if you have the for rent expansion pack, it would definitely be an apartment where there would be mold, so you could very well apply the mold lot challenge. It would fit very well for this apartment. This is probably something he would have to struggle with in this very cheap flat. Now the other problem is that he didn't have his furniture anymore because he had to give up his old apartment, and probably he or his friends in his place had to get rid of the furniture, so he had to find new one. And I just imagined that his friends, or I'm not sure if he has like close friends, but like people he knew from the past kind of helped him to find this apartment and helped him to furnish it. And they just got furniture from the dumpster and from the flea market and just stuff that people had in their garages and didn't need anymore. And this is how they pieced the furniture for his apartment together. And I really try to bring this across with the objects I chose. So you see I used this basement table that kind of looks very rustic and looks very old. There are different chairs, like plastic chairs, cheap wooden chairs that they just piece together so nothing matches. It's all very old and run down. He doesn't have curtains, the window's just covered up with a piece of cloth. He has like an ancient TV. It's all just stuff that was easy to find. Now, of course, he still has some stuff from life before prison, but when he had to give up the apartment, everything was just stored in cardboard boxes, and he probably had it in some friend's basement or attic or something. I don't know. But this is the reason why I placed all these cardboard boxes from the BasementTreasures kit, because I thought this is probably where his personal stuff, like his smaller objects, were stored in while he was in prison. And now he got it back, but he doesn't really know where to put it in his new apartment. He has a wardrobe, like there's a walk-in closet in this apartment, but maybe it's also that he doesn't really want to unpack his stuff, because he was kind of hoping that living in this apartment would only be a temporary solution and that he didn't really have to unpack all his stuff because he would be moving out there soon. But yeah, at this point, I imagined that already some months have gone by and he's still here. And at this point, it really seems that he's not going to leave this apartment anytime soon. So he probably should unpack the cardboard boxes already, but he still doesn't really feel like it, because he kind of feels that when he does it, it's like set in stone that he's going to stay there for the longer time, and he kind of doesn't want to admit this to himself. He actually really wants to leave all of this behind. He really would like to start a new life and get out of all of this. And if he could choose out of anything, he'd actually just really, really want to have a family and have like the most boring life, like getting married and having children and having a house and a 9-to-5 job or something. But as for now, this seems like completely out of reach, and he has kind of given up hope that this will ever happen to him. He currently has some sort of a steady job. Like, I'm not really sure what exactly happens when you get out of prison, but I suppose that there's some sort of reintegration program. So he probably got the jobs he has right now with this program. And I think I have him working as a manual and a cleaner in a fast food restaurant, so really not the best jobs, but he's actually glad that he has a job at all, and he really wants to make it work. He really does not want to fall back in his criminal activities, but this turns out way more difficult than he was hoping it would be. And the reason is that he's still in contact with people from earlier in his life. And what I'm going to do is that I'm hiding this money bag under the bookshelf. And I don't think that he himself stole this money, but I thought that maybe some of his former friends or so-called friends kind of turned up at his place and just asked him to hide the money, which probably they got during a job, and they just want him to keep it safe until the situation has calmed down a little bit. And he knows it will get him into trouble again eventually, but he's not the type of person to send his old friends away, because they helped him get this apartment and they helped to get back on his feet after he came out of prison, and now why wouldn't he help them? And he kind of cannot really get away from this lifestyle, and he doesn't want to let his old friends down. And it kind of is already getting clear that also he himself will get into some major difficulties again. But this is pretty much what the situation is right now. And I know there's literally no need to come up with that much of a backstory for an apartment renovation, but I couldn't help myself. While I was building this whole apartment building, everything kind of came together so naturally in my head. I don't know, I came up with so much backstory for all of these characters, and I don't really know what to do with this, because it's way too much backstory to tell in a voiceover for a speed build or apartment renovation. So yeah, I was even thinking about doing some sort of a little story series or gameplay or something, which I normally do not do, and I'm not sure if I would be really good at it, but I kind of feel the need to tell the story in a more detailed way. I'm not even sure if anyone would be interested in these kind of things, but I don't know what to do with the story. Another detail which I feel adds kind of nicely to the characterization of the sim is this milk churn with the branches next to the dining table. Because I put it there imagining that at some point this was an actual plant, like not just branches, but a living plant, a green plant. And I thought that he got this plant to just make the apartment seem a little bit more alive and, I don't know, cozy and nice. But even though he really tried to keep the plant alive, the plant died and it's now completely wilted and dried out and just like the skeleton of a plant. And although this is probably just a minor detail and it doesn't really matter, when he looks at this plant, he kind of feels that this is kind of symptomatic for his entire life. Like he desperately tries to do something good and to make something work. And it does not work. It does not work out. And he seems that everything he touches kind of fails. And yeah, he just feels that if he cannot even keep a plant alive, how is he supposed to change his life for the better? So I know this seems very overly dramatic because it's just a potted plant, but yeah, it's always there to remind him. And he generally doesn't have a lot of self-esteem. He kind of feels that he's kind of cursed and everything he does is doomed to go wrong or something. Now, apart from these very negative thoughts he's having about himself and his life, I also thought that he would be very much into music, and therefore I placed these tapes from GetTogether on the TV stand, and I also covered up almost all the walls with posters, which I thought would be somewhat music related, and I imagined that he would either have them from his old apartment and has kept them, or he just got them when he moved into this apartment to just cover up all of these ugly and empty walls and just to make the whole apartment look a little bit less empty and poor and sad. And yeah, he's just generally really into music. And here I'm also placing a painting that doesn't really fit the style of the apartment at all, but there's actually a reason why he's having this painting in his apartment, at least so I imagined. And yeah, there's a backstory for why he has this particular painting. It shows a lighthouse standing at the seaside, and it's not something he would normally care about or something he would hang on a wall in his apartment, but yeah, there's a certain reason why he keeps this painting and why this painting is important to him, but the story would be way too long to tell it in this voiceover. So yeah, I'm just going to mention this, and yeah, I had a certain motivation why I put it there. Now, also behind the bed, there's this artwork from Werewolves with this wolf holding a radio or something, and this is directly painted on the wall. I actually placed 3 of these wall decorations atop of each other because if I would have only placed 1, it would have been very pale, and I really wanted it to be very colorful and saturated, so I placed some of them atop of each other. And as I already mentioned in the last apartment renovation, I imagined that in one of the apartments of this building there was an artist or a painter living, and I already mentioned in the video with the caretaker's apartment that I thought this artist would have painted the portrait of the cat hanging in the caretaker's bedroom. And I also thought that for some reason, at some point, he got into the apartment of the guy living here. Maybe they became friends or something. I don't know what happened, but the artist saw how empty and sad and poor looking this apartment was, and he kind of offered to paint one of the walls for him to make it look a little bit more lived in and more interesting. Also, I noticed that in base game debug, there's a crowbar now. I'm absolutely not sure if it has always been there, but I think it has been added with the For Rent update, because sometimes they are adding debug stuff to base game that is actually tied to interactions that come with a certain pack. At least this has happened with some of the other expansion packs in the past, and I'm really thinking that this crowbar is actually related to this interaction of breaking into other Sims apartments and houses. But for some reason it's in base game now, and I thought it was a cool detail to add because I thought it was probably also something he either just has from the past or something his friends brought him together with the money bag to keep safe. Now in the bathroom, I was very set on choosing a mirror that also did not fit the style of this apartment, because I thought that maybe when he moved in here, they kind of forgot about the mirror. And at some point, he noticed that, yeah, he doesn't have a bathroom mirror, which kind of is a little bit annoying because he has to shave and things like that. So he had to get a bathroom mirror. And in front of this apartment building, I showed you this in the apartment build tour, but there's this box standing next to the trash can, which I thought that maybe tenants have put out there for people who walk by to look through it and take stuff they need out of it. And maybe he saw this box and found a mirror in it. And it's obviously a mirror for children, and it doesn't fit his style and the apartment style at all, but he really needed a bathroom mirror, so he just took it, although it is not very fitting and it's kind of very childish looking, but it was really the best that he could find. Now, there's also this graffiti on the bathroom wall. It's probably not something that he did. I just imagine that it has been there already and he just couldn't get rid of it. Now, when I was playtesting this apartment, I think the only problem I encountered that was related to the apartment itself was that the punch bag, which you probably saw me placing in the corner of the main living area in front of the wardrobe, that this punch bag was blocking the way to the right side of the bed. So a sim can get to the bed from the left side without any problems, but the right side is blocked. So if you want to have two Sims living in this apartment and you don't want to have one of them scoot over to the right side of the bed, you might have to delete this punch bag. And this is super annoying because if you look at the object, it really looks as if your Sims should be able to walk by it without any problems. But the thing is that this object just has a really big footprint, and yeah, unfortunately, this is just how the game works. So yeah, you might have to delete this. For me personally, it was more important to have this thing in the apartment because, first of all, the sim is living here alone, so he doesn't necessarily have to get to the right side of the bed. And for me, it was more important that he would have the punch bag to get rid of frustration and to do sports and things like that. But yeah, the other problem I had was in the kitchen with my sim not being able to use the free counter. However, after more than 1 hour of playtesting, I'm not kidding you, it turned out that the problem was not the counter being blocked, but my game just deciding to be extra buggy this day. And also it might be that my building save file is corrupted. I don't know, because when I placed the build in a new save, everything was working fine. So yeah, no idea what this was. Now, this is also going to be my last video before Christmas, and Christmas holidays are going to be a little bit busy. I'm also going home to my parents and hope to spend some time with them. I also have a lot of things to do for university, so I probably won't have that much of time for The Sims, so there's probably going to be a little bit of a break on the channel, but I'm hoping to be back in 2024. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to be back very soon. And in the meantime, I wish you happy holidays and Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and a Happy New Year. Bye!